Today we start our program with news from the Middle East, the latest maneuvering over the holy city, Jerusalem. In the wake of the U.S. president's decision to recognize the city as Israel's capital, Palestinian and Israeli leaders are on diplomatic offensives to gain support from the international community.
Protests against the decision are spreading across many Muslim countries, while some clashes are reported in the West Bank and Gaza. In the West Bank city of Ramallah, demonstrators gathered outside a U.S. cultural building and they marched through the streets denouncing Donald Trump.
We, the Palestinian people, refuse and reject Trump's decision. It means nothing to us. And he has made the United States and Israel completely isolated in front of the whole world.
500 protesters headed to an Israeli military checkpoint, burning tires and throwing stones. Israeli forces responded with tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse the demonstrators. The Palestinian Red Crescent says more than 70 people were injured.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stuck to his line on Jerusalem during a visit to Brussels, the capital of EU.
But after pushing for member nations to follow the U.S. move, the bloc's foreign policy chief rejected his request.
Netanyahu is the first Israeli Prime Minister to visit the EU in 22 years. He appeared optimistic in front of European foreign ministers.
And it's time that the Palestinians recognize the Jewish state and also recognize the fact that it has a capital. It's called Jerusalem. I believe that even though we don't have an agreement yet, this is what will happen in the future. I believe that all or most of the European countries will move their embassies to Jerusalem, recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital.
Netanyahu says Trump's decision does not prevent peace. Instead, it makes it possible. But the EU's foreign policy head said she told Netanyahu the entire bloc still supports a two-state solution.
We will continue to respect the international consensus on Jerusalem until the final status of the Holy City is resolved through direct negotiation between the parties.
The EU plans to invite Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to Brussels in January in order to convey its policy.
The Palestinian leader is also making diplomatic efforts to garner support. Abbas met with Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. They agreed on the need to take concrete action to defend the rights of Palestinians.
Sisi is said to have reiterated his support for the Palestinian claim on East Jerusalem as the capital of a future state. The two leaders also agreed to continue high-level coordination to maintain the rights of Palestinians. The meeting came after Egypt voiced its opposition to Trump's decision. Observers say the Palestinians are courting Egypt's support in order to pressure Washington to review its decision, because Egypt has long worked with the U.S. to broker Middle East peace. It is also one of the few Arab states that maintains diplomatic ties with Israel. Abbas also met with the head of the Arab League and is due to attend a summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation in Turkey on Wednesday.
Amid mounting criticism against Trump's decision on the Holy City, the White House is vowing to continue pushing for peace. It comes after Palestinian President Abbas says he refuses to meet with U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, who's scheduled to visit the Middle East later this month.
We find it unfortunate that they're walking away from the opportunity to discuss the future of the region, but the administration remains undeterred in its efforts to help achieve peace between Israelis and Palestinians.
The White House spokesperson also deflected blame for the demonstrations in the Middle East. She said it's not Trump's fault, but instead blamed the protesters.
Tens of thousands of people demonstrated at a Hezbollah rally in southern Beirut to protest against President Donald Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Carrying Lebanese and Palestinian flags as well as the militant group's yellow banners, men, women and children marched through the streets chanting death to Israel. The rally, one of several large demonstrations recently held across the Middle East to protest against Trump's move, was called for by Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. At a fiery address broadcast to protesters, Nasrallah vowed to return Hezbollah's focus on the Palestinian cause after years of fighting in Syria's civil war. He said he hoped the decision would mark the beginning of the end of the Jewish state and called on their allies to put in place a united strategy in the field to confront Israel. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel has condemned all anti-Semitic acts, such as burning of Israeli flags, following demonstrations in Berlin over the weekend. We strongly condemn each form of anti-Semitism and xenophobia. No dispute on Jerusalem's status justifies such a behaviour. The state has to intervene with all means that it possesses. Around 2,500 people demonstrated in reaction to Donald Trump's announcement that the US government would recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. On Friday, hundreds of people gathered outside the US embassy in Berlin for Day of Rage protests called for by Palestinian and Hamas authorities. Joseph Schuster, head of the Central Council of Jews in Germany, has called for the immediate dissolution of any demonstration where Jewish symbols are defiled. More than 70 years after World War II, in which Germany killed 6 million Jews, anti-Semitism remains a sensitive issue in the country. Germany considers itself to be one of Israel's closest diplomatic allies.